I am, of course, as ever today, joined by Anne Lord Jackson from Jersey. Hello, Anne.
Hello, it is so good to be with you. Love being here.
It's good. We've done 80 odd sessions of these now, which is cool. It's
I
like
know
therapy for the soul.
to think like 2 years, 2 years, really? Plus, it's like it's a beautiful thing. It's really lovely.
And I don't think we've ever got to the point of thinking, we've run out of stuff to say. I've got another angle yet again. And this is something we were just saying off air, which is there's so much in life that we haven't even touched on, that touches everybody, that we actually have some answers to.
Yeah, yeah, totally. And that's why I absolutely love what I do. I was listening to something early this morning about your work being your passion, and I thought I couldn't so be in the right place. This is just what I love. It oozes out of me almost. It's like everything that I see, everything that I do, every way that I am, and every way that I hope other people to take on board or to consider is all about sensory processing and sensory health because the far-reaching it's like those ripples of influence go into physical, mental health, emotional health, spiritual health. It just covers it all. Yeah. So, yes, very glad to be here.
Just a quick point of clarification. When I say we are helping, I mean, I'm asking Anne questions who actually knows what she's talking about to help you via what I'm doing, but I'm not the expert, just to be very clear.
But I couldn't do what I do unless you ask me questions that actually draw out stuff from me. And then it's just like, oh, yeah, it's much easier for me to deliver that way because that's not my forte otherwise. So, yes.
Exactly. You see, working together is always good. As Bob the Builder would say, working together to get the job done. Right. We have a question. Um, this was actually from the Bearded Show, the Bearded Blokes, which is me and Stephen D. Because Stephen started talking about listening to music and getting goosebumps because we discovered a story that said 55% of people, while they're listening to music, can get goosebumps. And Stephen's question, really, really simple, is why?
Wow. Wow, that was phenomenal. I was goosebumping on Sunday, but that's because my son sent me something through on WhatsApp from him being out in the States. But it was somebody preaching, somebody talking, and what he was saying just struck such a chord that my arms. It always happens in my arms. It doesn't happen anywhere else. It'd be
Hmm.
interesting to see where anybody else goosebumps. Occasionally on the neck. Yeah, music gets me in the neck actually more than anything. Like, as in, makes me like you get the tingles in the back of your neck. Um, but normal goosebumps. It's the front of the arms. There has to be. Obviously, it's so difficult scientifically to pull this one apart, but between the spiritual and the fact that we have a spirit being, we have the spirit man, and we have the Holy Spirit within us that will manifest, for want of a better word, will show himself as affirmations at times by using the touch system. But obviously, goosebumps happen to people who are not filled with the Holy Spirit. But there is that human spirit, and God has created music in a way to connect with people. And obviously, I have no idea. I have not looked into it in any shape or form, but I do know, yeah, that it happens. And there is something within our physicality that connects to music in a way that, yeah, it transcends. It goes beyond our frontal lobe cognitive thinking, which is in the front of our brain, and connects to our body because we are designed, our whole bodies are designed to appreciate the world and interact with the world. And music affects, goes into all aspects of us. Yes, it goes into our ears, but it also does go into our skin. And there's maybe one aspect of it that, say, those lower frequencies activate, they physically do activate the tactile receptors in the skin. We know that much. If you've been at a rock concert or if you've got a teenage boy, he is likely to turn the bass up if he's in the car and he will, drive through and blast things out, or that they've got it full on volume in their rooms because it just helps them feel their own bodies when maybe they are under responsive in their tactile systems, or they are just growing through those teenage years and their bodies are growing quicker than their brain can keep up with them. So turning up the volume gives more vibration, which is picked up by the tactile system. And certainly those bass notes, or the bass area, those bass frequencies hit the body in a different way. I don't know how they would cause goosebumps. I think there's something extra happening there, but certainly the tactile system, that the touch system picks up vibration massively.
I've got two thoughts on this one. One of
Mm.
which is if you are listening to music, and you've got speakers in front of you, so anybody else in the room can hear it with you. That's what I'm trying to refer to. In that context, your body isn't just hearing music; it's feeling music in a very, very unique way. Because, of course, as I said, lower frequencies they register differently. And I was at a big church, and when the bass comes in, I can feel it in my stomach for two reasons. One, I can actually feel it in my stomach because the sound waves from the speakers are moving in such a way that my stomach is interacting with it. And I can always feel bass sort of top of my stomach. I can feel it there.
Yeah.
And this is the other part. If you're listening with earphones, I've got headphones in at the moment. If I started to listen to music now so that nobody else could hear it, I'm fascinated how much of an impact that would have because we can actually not just hear music but feel it. I know we were living next to a whole family of they were all deaf in different contexts and severities, but they would be able to move to music by feeling the frequencies of the bass through the floorboards. And if you're standing there, you can actually feel it, start to tune into it. You realize you can. So that just gets me thinking: is there a difference between hearing plus seeing music? Sorry, hearing plus feeling, as opposed to just hearing? But of course it's not just hearing because it's going to vibrate, which is again it doesn't matter whether it's audible to others or not, you are hearing and feeling music just in slightly different ways.
Yeah. And so I have an auditory training program as part of the therapeutic package that I offer people. And there are two options. So the first option where you need the full in, like over ear, because we want sound to be picked up in the way that our ears are designed in a most weird and wonderful way, but for good reason, with how they pick up sound and how they can help us to pinpoint where sound comes from and stuff. But we have music that is specially modulated, specially designed and programmed computer-wise so that it helps the hearing system hit every single frequency that we hear as humans from 0 to 20,000 hertz. And that training program goes through the ears. Now, if you can afford more, I will always recommend bone conduction headphones because they have a little thing on the top of the headphones that goes down through the top of your head. And it's the vibrations that go through the cavities of your brain and of your head to impact the brain in a way that doesn't need to use the ears. So there are times that we, depending on who's listening to it and what's going on and what they need, therapeutically we can change those headphones to be pure bone conduction, which means they don't hear anything through their ears, or we have a combination of some of the music going through their head and some of it going through their ears, and we tweak those balances. And it's really settling, really organizing. It helps desensitize some individuals when they're particularly overreactive to certain sounds. There are lots of people, lots of neurodiverse people, or lots of typical people with just an issue in their auditory processing, where they're really hypersensitive to certain sounds, to certain frequencies. They can hear things next door. They can hear somebody whispering, but they can't hear like next door. But they can't hear something that's going on in that room. That they're particularly attuned to certain things, and auditory stuff can feel really painful for people. So I love the bone conduction aspect of our processing of our. I'm not quite sure if I can call it auditory processing, but our processing of music and our processing of vibration, which of course is what sound is effectively.
Two things you just reminded me of. The family, well, it was a group of students actually that lived next door. I think basically none of them could hear anything. That was kind of the general thing. And it was more severe beyond that, which it was a learning curve for me. But they had a doorbell installed with a light so that if there was someone at the door, you get the ding dong sound, but also there's lights flashing in the house. Okay, we've got someone at the door because they can't hear it. Here's the thing. I had to go around one day and get their attention because the doorbell had been fitted on like extra loud, kind of, level of a space shuttle going off noise. And I had to say, please, can you turn it down? Well, we didn't know it was making a noise. And I immediately got irritated thinking, well, I can hear it next door. Old Victorian house, really thick walls. I can hear your doorbell. Oh, we're so sorry. We didn't know it was making a noise. They turned it off because it was pointless. It didn't need to have any noise for them. That was fascinating because it's a different set of problems to what you normally think. But here's the other one. I used to do a lot of trucking. I've had various earpieces for talking while driving. For Bluetooth, a little boom mic coming off. The very, very best one was my absolute first one, and it was utterly excellent. Everybody I spoke to said, it's like you're in the room next to me. It's amazing. And it's because it didn't have a microphone to pick up my voice. It only picked up through the resonance in the ear. And everybody said, it sounds exactly like you are in the room with us, having a proper conversation. There's never any background noise. We can't hear anything but you. It was not super expensive, by the way. It was just one of the cheapest ones I could afford at the time. Absolutely superb. Never seen one since. And everybody said the same. It's amazing. The clarity. I would never know you were in a car or a truck. Just sounds like you're sitting next to me in a room.
That is amazing. And just think, why? What happened to it then? Or why didn't it, why haven't more people done the same thing if that's...
I don't know. No microphone, which is perfect.
Yeah.
In that context, because you want no residual noise.
Uh-huh.
It's fascinating. I know the military use two microphones. You see two dots on the neck because one's picking up the ambient noise, one's picking up your voice, and it cancels it out. So when you're talking, you don't hear the bombs and explosions. What you can hear is the voice. Effectively, what I had in my ear going back 18 years probably was exactly that. It was picking up the vibrations, which is the noise, which just goes to show that actually vibration is how we do hear.
Yeah, yeah. And it's interesting going from when I started off when I was young, when I used to do stage work, where the microphones used to be, and then the earpieces, and then it's the little bulb that would hit, come down your head, and then I, left the stage kind of scene. And I think microphone, that'd be fascinating to chat with people, like almost like the evolution of microphone design and just how it's growing, how it's changing. What more are we understanding about the way that we communicate? But that's definitely seems to be one that the closer we can actually get to the vibration rather than what is coming out through the air seems to be the best for transmitting it the most clearly.
Less interference. It's that simple.
Right.
So I was just interesting what you spurred my mind to think of. Now, we are doing sensory healthy things, stuff, situations, scenarios. Here's one. So last time we were looking at sensory healthy, was it waking up or sensory healthy marriage? I've forgotten now what we did, how we phrased it. I can't remember. But I thought sensory healthy social media.
Oh, right.
Let me explain. I spend a lot of time on social media because it's part of my job. It's what I do. I scan through all sorts of things and try and work out what's going on in the world in order to influence how we can better help in the world. That's a big part of what I do. And I've noticed and this is all in the wake of the murder of Charlie Kirk in the US. I've seen on social media some real, almost like a pivot shift in how people are interacting with social media. I can't prove this. It's not like I've got evidence. It's a very obvious visible difference since he was murdered, because people who I would expect to talk don't. People who I've never heard of are shouting, and it's become quite an unpleasant place to be. Now, I look at stuff that would be classed as left wing. I look at stuff that's classed right wing. I don't care about wings. I'm just in the middle. But I like to get a balanced view from all sorts of people because then you actually get a better story. But I thought about social media specifically because two things. One, somewhere in America, they're actually discussing whether to make it illegal for under 18s to use social media, which is a fascinating concept, which as a dad, I go, oh, that's really cool. And then there's me also thinking, oh, that's freedom of speech. And I've got these kind of two parts of me thinking, oh, I don't know how I feel about that. It's making me think. I don't have a conclusion. There's the dad part, and then there's the other part. But it just got me thinking about how we use social media. And it comes down to this. I was reading somebody who said, I read this by this person. This is what I thought. And then I saw the whole thing because I just saw little tiny sound bites. And I therefore concluded X, Y, and Z. Now I've actually watched the whole thing. It's transformed who I am. And the thing with social media is where the sensory health comes in, is social media can enrage us. We've seen the phrase keyboard warrior, and you can kind of imagine someone in their room tapping away, usually in capital letters, to shout at you. I ignore those. And it's quite violent in a sense, and yet it's not. So the sensory health of what I'm asking you for, which is trying to be a longer intro, how do we do sensory health better in regards to social media when just picking up your phone and scrolling through, you're going to see stuff which is not true, which is one problem. That's not the question. But stuff that's partially true and stuff that is true. And it moves us internally so much. People get angry and they do all sorts of stupid stuff as a result of social media, explicitly and exclusively so. How then can we do social media better from a sensory healthy perspective?
Yeah. Wow. What a question. As with anything, it is various stages along the way. There is the preparing before going in with the correct kind of mindset. I think anywhere where we just allow ourselves to, what's the word? Just absorb what it is and not filter. I think it's having that filtration up to begin with. But before we go on social media, have an element of preparation before it, so that you're not just absorbing the information just because, and it will go into you regardless of whether whatever you think about the content, it is going to go into you because you're seeing it, because you're hearing it, because you're reading it. It is going to go into your psyche. It is going to go into your spirit. So before you even go on, it's like being prepared, preparing yourself, knowing that the power of the influence of social media, and having that 5% of a barrier up or more before you go in, so that you can take captive and be aware that you are not. It's preparing yourself beforehand. Do not take anything at face value from Facebook, from social media. It is like you may choose to absorb to a degree, but you're not going to let it influence you. So you can cognitively, just using your mind, using your brain, just put a stop to that. But it's when things have been allowed, whether you've allowed it or whether it has just entered you and caused this reaction, which is much lower brain processing, that stimulates a physical response, whether it be an anger or the tears or the love or whatever. It is before you respond to it, it is stepping away for a little bit, just or hold your phone and go and walk up and down the stairs. Just breathe, just do something. We need to learn how to develop that self-control. It is a gift of the spirit, and if we are not developing self-control, that's why we have such awfulness coming out on social media, because people don't, they just let it fire. And if we can take control of our responses, then that is going to help, a great deal. And we can reduce our arousal levels. So when we are put into that fight mode or that passionate mode, or that's something that is not good passion, but can potentially be really, really negative and incite other people to say things that are not helpful, that's when we need to have that self-control to pull away and do those sensory strategies. Whether it be do a bit of a dance, just take time out, just go for a walk, just walk outside 2 minutes, or even take your phone with you, go walk up and down the stairs, sing to yourself, just totally distract yourself. Allow the build up, the physical build up in your system to dissipate a bit, because we will just get firing. A slow anger turns away, a slow response turns away wrath, and be slow to anger. It's that response that we need to give that is controlled. So a soft answer, that's what I'm looking for. A soft answer turns away wrath. We need absolutely to be self-controlled. And we can use sensory strategies to give us that space when we might instinctively, because of the power of social media, we might instinctively want to respond to it, but we just need to respond, learn how to react and respond to something that comes so intimately into our lives.
And I think this is the thing. This little device, which we now need for banking and all sorts of things, you cannot now have a mobile phoneless life if you want to enter the digital world at all, which includes things like banking or paying for things online. We're going to send you a one-time password. You have to have a mobile phone. I don't like the have to part, but that's where we are. But I was just thinking about the fact that, generally speaking, if you go down to the pub, nice classic example, you're in the pub, you're having a pint with a bunch of people or a glass of wine, whatever, and someone disagrees with you, the first thing you're going to do is disagree back. The problem with social media is we get to say what we want without considering where we are. In a pub, you think, hey, there's one of me and 10 of them. I probably need to be careful how I speak right now. And they've had a bit of alcohol, so we can see that, maybe they're a bit too relaxed and might get aggressive. So we tailor it. The problem with text, emails have been classically said, text messages as was, an emoji can go so far. But hey, if you're going to be rude, you're going to be rude, and a smiley face doesn't cut it. And I think that's one of the things where I don't think there's been any real training. And this sounds almost silly, but we kind of need to be trained how to use social media, how to engage with it. I have many thoughts, which I'm not going to go into on that. But we need to think about it, because in that pub scenario, you're not just going to blast away at someone you can't see. Why would you? There's every possibility they'll punch you. You know, this is life. We know this in human reactions. So we're very careful. But of course, on social media, I'm hiding behind a screen. No one knows who I am, where I live, what I do. So now I get to say whatever I want to say, unfiltered. And actually, that's not good for anybody else. And it's not good for me, because now, like you're saying, it's like unfiltered anger. And the real issue is, because we're not moving and, we're not playing rugby or having an argument walking down the road. Now, all of the physical reaction to that anger is fully internalized. Is that cortisol and all that? And all of a sudden, we've now got physical fright and flight while I'm sitting in my lounge with a cup of tea and a phone in my hand.
Absolutely. Absolutely, it's quite a remarkable shift in our psyche, and that most of it's not something that's said through our society. I don't know how much in schools, it's kind of like self-control is really important. Self-control is massively important. I don't ever personally remember anybody talking about it in a school setting. It's like, well, we talk about being kind and things like that, but self-control is the crux of so many things, and we need to help people learn how to be self-controlled, or realize the response of what they're doing when they just let rip, on social media, and they think, yeah, they're anonymous. So, or even if they don't think they're anonymous, they just want to get a following, and by being, obnoxious and hurtful and unkind is a way to get it. It's like, okay.
In some ways, I'm thinking, is this sort of straying from essential health? But I really don't think it is, because this affects who we are and how we are. And this is the problem. You can walk into a room, someone's on their phone, they've just had a verbal tirade of argument with somebody. They might be in the right, might be in the wrong. Someone walks in the room. Oh, I just noticed you left the fridge door open. And the only response is going to be explosion, because no one had a clue that they've just had a big argument on a mobile phone, because it so silences anger in a bizarre way, but by channeling it to one person like they're wearing earphones. And you would have no clue and think, why they just exploded me about the fridge? They're the one that's at fault. They left it open. Or the freezer. There's water on the floor. But we don't know. And that's the thing. In a pub, you'd walk in and think, oh, I can feel the tension.
Yeah.
You don't have the same capability if someone's on a phone.
That's such a powerful thing, because that's the humanity. So walking in the pub, you've got the sights and the sounds, and you feel, it is that feeling of the atmosphere. You can sense it literally with the senses. And you have somebody who's on their phone, and you have absolutely no idea what is going on. You haven't heard, you haven't seen, you know nothing of the context. There is nothing. You might be able to tell there's something physically, potentially, up with that person. I know something had happened with me. Something off had happened to the business during the week. So I was trying to work it out, and my husband came in and asked me something, and it was like, I knew I wasn't in a good place, to respond well at that point. And it was more like, can you give me, not a good time, basically. And we have those opportunities, and under normal circumstances, we can communicate that, but sometimes we're not even aware of it. And it just happens, and then you'll snap back, or you'll respond back, and it's a new way of working through relationships, because we have no context, which is exactly what you were saying there, that the context just isn't there, and you don't know anything.
I'm back to thinking, yes, this was a good sensory health question, because our approach to it, and especially the bit just after we've come off reading somebody saying something particularly horrible, is to snap at the first person we see in the real world. And of course, we're in a virtual world where we know that there's lots of accounts that are fake. They're not real. So you can be shouting at somebody who's not a somebody. It's a set of preset responses. We know this is quite normalized now. I saw a picture the other day. I'm not going to say in what context, but very obviously fake, very, very well faked. I do graphic manipulation, so I can see the fake stuff. A lot of people were taking in and we're going off on a tangent. It's like, but that's not original. It's very obviously not original. It's very skillfully done, but it's very obviously not original. And of course, it's triggering stuff. So here's the other part of this. I go through a lot of news sites, and again, I read all sorts. I don't know, 12 or 15. I probably scan every day, and I'm getting stuff from extreme far left, extreme far right, somewhere in the middle. It's a whole mishmash, and I like to read all of them to try and get a balanced view. But one of the things I've seen more and more and more, to the point of I can't be bothered looking at your newspaper anymore, is clickbait, because they're trying to generate a response enough, normally of "ooh, I want to know." It's almost like gossip. And then when you finally click in it, it's the most redundantly boring thing you've ever known. But of course, now you've done what they wanted because it's triggering a response. And it's the triggering of a, it's hard to say that. It's the triggering of a response that I'm more interested in from a sensory healthy perspective, because they're trying to play on our emotional health, which of course is always going to be very much tied to our sensory health. So it's an obvious one when you read it. Guess what they've said, ... Okay, we know that's clickbait. They're getting more clever now. They don't do the three dots at the end, and it's a bit more subtle, but they're trying to trigger. And I guess my thoughts on sensory health and social media is, how do we use it responsibly? Because when I first started on Facebook, I was just chatting people I knew from over the years, sharing photos, sharing stories. Now it's bombardment of advertisement to the point that they're all almost useless as social media platforms, because you can't see the people you actually want to see because you've been given stuff you don't want to see. And it just riles us up and disconnects us from society. So how do we do better with sensory health when we want to know the news, but everyone's trying to clickbait us into it, which sounds like a non-sensory health question, but it's all about our response, which is very much sensory health related.
Yeah, it is, and that's the foundations. It's that regulation. We call it like self-regulation. How can we be more self-regulated in how we absorb the information, how we respond to it, how we react to it? And it's that awareness raising of the impact of these things, and that we can take control. We need to take the control when others are trying to control us with the things that they feed us and how they want us to engage with it. It's going to be really interesting over the next number of years to see how much of a shift is going to happen, and how people who are getting wiser and more controlled. I think when you're first hit with social media, goodness me, you just get drawn in because you have there's nothing that you've ever had like it. There is nothing else out there. You might get the odd advert on TV, but that's that can be powerful, but nothing like social media. So for the newbies coming into social media, or even some of our older adults who are thinking, because they've now got to get a mobile phone because of their banking, that those who are 60s plus are being absolutely forced to meet a new world that they've never had done before. And it's very easy to get consumed. So we just need to take control back as soon as absolutely possible, and monitor what our eyes see, what our ears hear, and use the physical body when we feel it affecting us, because nothing else affects us. In the normal world, you might have somebody who's a bit annoying, but you just walk away, or you learn how to deal with it, or you speak to them and you resolve it. And that's a typical sensory healthy, normal, lovely process. But you have this stuff coming on screen, and you have no recourse for that coming in and affecting you. Because actually answering back doesn't help, because it always gets twisted, and everything always just gets twisted, and people pick things up wrongly when you meant it in a different way, and it's just one big mess, really. So it's about taking control and recognizing you don't have to engage in this stuff. You do what you need to. Go to places where you know that you are not you're not going to get clickbait in the same way. It's you can choose your channels, choose things wisely. It's just take control of it, and don't just be there. There is a word I'm looking for. It's not quite absorb, but it's about just being proactive. Every time you go into social media, do it with a set focus, with a proactive way of being, and actively don't scroll. Go and choose to do the gardening. Go and choose to do some cooking. Go and choose to visit a neighbor. Do something active, so that when you do use social media, it is absolutely with a focus, with a purpose. You've got your filter on, and you have your strategies that you're not going to, respond to something on social media. And maybe even just say that as a rule before you even go in for those 15 minutes a day, or whatever you choose to set for yourself.
social media is one of those things that is around us. It's like websites. If you gave somebody a computer and said, go on this website, watch the website, if they're at that level, how do they know on that website what button to click? What does that mean? What's this? What's that? I remember when cookies came in from the EU, you've got to have a cookies banner. I remember having to put these stupid things in, which actually created more problems than they were trying to solve in the first place. What a shock. But we had to explain what a cookie was. Like, it's a biscuit, right? It's what you eat, but it's got nothing to do with that. It's to do with crumbs that you leave behind you. That's quite a complicated concept. And so on a website I was building at the time, we had to create a cookie thing and, describing what it is. When you're visiting us, here's the details of what we're retaining of your information of coming to us. People were quite shocked. Well, how do you know those things? And then I tried to explain, well, if you've come to my website, I need to know what computer you have. I need to know where you are in the world in order to send you the data that you want to read on the screen. So actually, there's an awful lot of two-way traffic going on, which you have no clue about, which really isn't that important. I don't think. But we had to put cookies on. It's quite complicated if you don't know what it was. And if you came across a cookie on a website, you're thinking, what nonsense is this? And we have that. Why have you got this information? We've now got to tell you what people have been doing for the last 10 years. And now you're knowing what we've been doing, because if we didn't do that, you couldn't see anything. When you're explaining like advanced technological stuff that people don't get, copywriting photos, I don't want anyone to take this photo down. Once it's on a computer screen, they've now got a copy of your photo, because if they didn't, it would be impossible for them to see your photo. Well, I want it not. Nobody should be able to download it. They just did. They have to be able to download it onto their computer, or the computer browser won't show it on the screen for them. And it's these things which are quite complicated, which don't really help and can bamboozle and confuse, when all you wanted to do was go on a website and order some shopping to come in a week's time. But that's all this other stuff, and it gets in the way. I've forgotten what I was going to say now completely. But anyway, I think social media is one of those things which is really good. But do you remember a conversation we had ages ago? And it was about how to have a healthy, was it a sensory healthy Christmas visit? I think when you're going to someone's house, when they're really overboard on Christmas with noises and smells and people. And if you've got an overreactive child, that would be hell on earth. But it's family, right? So you've got to go. So then we looked at, how do you go to a place your child's going to react badly to, that you need to go to, and how do you get through that, navigate that? And that seems the most pertinent to using social media, because you haven't got to go and see your family member, you haven't got to use social media, but it's kind of family, right? So you probably need to go, and it's social media, so you probably do need to go. So I think they're quite synonymous one with another, oddly. And your advice with that was a lot about what you've said about preparation, about limiting time, walking away if you need to, being able to exit, and having, a wind up and a kind of a calming down. So I'm talking more than usual, but it reminded me of that conversation we had.
Yeah, that's quite remarkable. I have to ask you about your memory. Do you actually remember these things, or do you go back and listen? It's quite remarkable what you remember.
I have quite a good memory.
Okay. And I know I particularly have a particularly bad one, but just thinking, really? So we talked about it. I do remember the Christmas one, though. I do. Well, all the things that you said, absolutely. I mean, that's exactly what.
My brain should be studied.
Yeah.
I can see a brain surgeon. Where's the brain? What's going on? I don't know. I remember stuff in context very, very well. Like this conversation reminds me of that conversation, so I remember it quite vividly.
Yeah, no, it's good. But preparation, as you say, just we cannot just walk through life just being, like the intentionality of everything that we think, everything that we do, but not in any oppressive way. It's just we can take control. It's funny that so many things we cannot have control over, but we can have control over our own lives and what we choose to bring into our senses, our sights, the things that we listen to, music, all of that stuff is we do have the control. So enjoy it. There's no need to control anybody else. You just need to protect and take control and enjoy the sensory inputs that you bring into your own life experience.
I have no recollection of anybody ever teaching me anything to do with self-control, other than maybe a couple of times at Sunday school as a little boy, and self-control gets trotted out as one of the fruit of the spirit, because you draw a tree and you draw the bits of the fruit of the spirit. That's probably the closest to self-control training that I've had, and that's utterly useless in that context. Because self-control is something we need in society. It's something we seem to have lost the ability to do, because I think social media has given us almost what we perceive to be the right to be whoever we want to be because we can be. Whereas in normal civilized society, going down to the pub, you said after stuff you said on Facebook, they'd laugh you out the pub or make you buy the next round and you'd shut up. That's how it would be fixed. But of course, we don't have that bit on social media.
Uh-huh.
And because of how social media works, we know algorithms are out there. We know they are tailoring what you see to make you stay on their platform. So you don't go from Facebook to Instagram or Instagram to X or X to TikTok. They want to keep you on their platform. Well, of course they do. That's normal. The pub owner wants you to stay in the pubs. They're going to do the best with the tables and the chairs. It's no different. And yet it is because it's not real.
Mm.
And I think that's key, especially in sensory health, because it's manipulating what we feel or how we react. And we need to be very aware of that. And it's very subtle and it's very easy to be drawn in to utter nonsense.
Yeah. And because our eyes and our ears are terribly powerful for keeping us engaged in something. Smells, you'll have an immediate reaction, it will go into your limbic system and it'll bring memories and this, that, and the other, but it won't last. Like 5-10 minutes and you're past it, or you smell the lawn being mowed and it's just like, oh, that's lovely, if you don't get hay fever. And those moments pass, but things that you see with your eyes and your ears and even are so powerful and are continuous. Physical activity we can only do for a certain amount of time, and then our body's like, so our vestibular proprioceptive systems, we can only take so much, but our eyes and our ears, goodness, they are really powerful senses for engagement, and especially when it continues. So you can be on there for hours if you do not take control. And I don't know why we can't. It would be brilliant to bring up self-control as a thing, as a real priority in today's society in particular. And people, but I suppose folks don't know it's a fruit of the Holy Spirit, and why would they if we haven't told folks, or if we're not spreading the word, or if we don't talk about these things. But I know as a mum growing up, out of all the fruits of the Spirit, that was the biggest in the whole family, and one of the biggest things that we worked on.
Yep.
Other things came more easily, but self-control, that was like, right, okay, we really need to feed, have good soil for this, and feed this, and know how to nurture self-control, because it's really important in today's society.
Thank you, Anne. I'll try and talk less next time, but you kind of got me off on a topic and I thought, oh, it's good, this.
Yeah. No, it's good. Let's just keep chatting.
If you want to connect with Anne Lord Jackson and to contact her, she's on Jersey, but she does a lot of work remotely. So wherever you're in the world, she can help. Anne Lord Jackson's best, easiest way of getting hold is through our website, pure247radio.org, pure247radio.org/ALJ. That will connect you to Anne Lord Jackson and more. Thank you, Anne.
Thank you.